insane clown posse has been influenced by the satanic serial killer John Wayne Gacy. Gacy, pictured here with former First Lady Rosalind Carter, was very active in Democratic politics. At the same time he was active in Democratic politics, he was also active in homosexuality, molestation, torture, and the murder of 33 children. Gacy used an array of clown costumes to entertain children and the community. What was interesting about Gacy's clown makeup was that he departed radically from the traditional rounded eyes and rounded noses typically used by clowns. Gacy liked to sport a more satanic, evil look in his clown makeup, which actually was a subtle revelation of the sinister aspect of his heart. Gacy used some of his clown routines to become a socialite and to meet prospective victims. Gacy would take many of his prospective victims home and teach them various tricks, but it wasn't long before they found out that Gacy's funhouse was really a house of horrors. Gacy was diabolical, sadistic, and satanic. One of Gacy's means of deception was that of taking one of his victims into his home and showing them how to get out of fake handcuffs. After they had mastered the trick, Gacy would then ask them to put the handcuffs on behind their back and then to try to get out of them. Only this time, Gacy would place real handcuffs upon his victims. Then he would proceed to sodomize, torture, and murder them. In time, Gacy would amass as many as 33 murders, most of which would be buried in the crawl space beneath his home. Sadly, authorities spent weeks pulling the bodies of his victims out of what ended up to be a virtual cemetery underneath Gacy's house. Incredibly, while Gacy was in prison, different prominent people purchased his demonic art, and various rock stars corresponded with him through letters. Sadly, the satanic rap group, the Insane Clown Posse, have sported makeup similar to that of Gacy's and have used their influences on millions of youth to trivialize and desensitize people to such evil.
Rainforest, the forest gone. The bloody naked in the wrong. We don't feel it on the face. Gone 52 states.
The evil influence that musicians so powerfully wield over their millions of fans is undeniable, and many of them even glory in it.
They take it quite seriously. I look into the faces of our fans, and I see that they've been touched by the Dark Carnival the same way that I've been.
We didn't do nothing. We're just serial killers. Sure, we got a little problem with necrophilia. I admit it, but you came to us first, right? Just keep this in mind. They're playing our CDs when you're not home. They're playing my tapes in your own car, in the tape. And I'm influencing your children.
I'm glad you're influenced by us. Do you do drugs? Go home and smoke something.
I'm influencing your children.
Listen, if you're ever going to commit a crime, you should do it now because you're still a minor.
And I'm influencing your children. And I'm influencing your children. And I'm influencing your children.
There are two kinds of people I hate. Clowns. And people who are scared of clowns. But there are a lot more people afraid of clowns than there are clowns, which I suppose makes them worse. In fact, there is even a name for it, coulrophobia. Yet it might not technically be a phobia, as there have been many reports of encounters with real-life evil clowns. There is nothing new about the fear of clowns. Even before the birth of Hollywood, creepy clowns were a stock character in plays and novels. An early example is the 1892 opera Pagliacci, where a murderous clown is a central character. Long before that, Edgar Allan Poe wrote of a court jester who burned his king to death. It's thought the modern theme of evil clowns was only popularized in 1986, when Stephen King published It, but people forget the mystery preceding it. In April of 1981, a series of strange police reports emerged in the city of Boston. According to them, men dressed as clowns were driving around in an old van, creeping people out. It was said they were looking for children to kidnap, and the local school board soon warned pupils to avoid clowns. Boston police also released a statement, warning of one particular clown who was naked from the waist down. No one knew quite what was going on, or if there was any truth to the reports. No clown could be found though, despite a widespread police search, and many began to wonder if it was a hoax. But then it went national. A wave of similar reports began to be heard in other cities. In almost every US state, people were claiming to encounter creepy clowns. But again in these areas, police were unable to find any murderous clowns. For a while, parents were afraid to let their children play outside, even in small towns. Yet in time it came to be regarded as a moral panic, caused more by the media than anything else. In fact, the only victims seemed to be actual clowns, who were often attacked while in makeup. This might make you feel bad for them, but don't forget clowns deserve it. Fresh in the public conscience was John Wayne Gacy, a real clown who in secret was a long-time serial killer. From 1972 to 78, he murdered at least 33 young men and boys. Regularly luring his victims to his home, he would bury their corpses in his basement. In a highly publicized case, he was only caught when he ran out of room in his basement and needed to find another means of disposal. Claiming the murders were committed by some kind of alternate personality, the press focused in on his hobby, and he came to be known as the Killer Clown. The case played a big part in how clowns came to be so notorious, and made people fear the worst when the scare began. While the initial wave of clown sightings died down in 1981, they have occasionally flared up again. The next wave came in 1991, when rumours emerged of a group of clowns driving around in a van. More intense than previous reports, the clowns would pile out of the van on seeing a lonely child, and run at them full force. Most incidents were simple hoaxes, like in 2013, when a knife-wielding clown was sighted in the English town of Northampton, but some are more difficult to explain. Researchers have made the point clown scares tend to happen in or around election cycles, so it's fitting the biggest scare of all occurred in 2016. In late August, police in South Carolina were told of a creepy clown. In full clown costume, he would approach strangers and whisper into their ear, asking them to follow him into the woods. Just like in previous decades, news of this incident soon spread, with evil clowns being seen far and wide. But unlike before, videos of such encounters flooded social media. So this time, people who didn't believe the rumors could see it with their own eyes. Some schools were even shut down after a clown supposedly made a threat against them. In many towns, locals armed themselves and set out to hunt down any clown they find, which I think is a pretty good idea. It's unclear if any were hurt by the angry mobs, but things were getting out of hand. Then when the scare was at its peak, it died down as fast as it kicked off. By the end of it, we had more questions than answers. The most important question is, when will the next wave of evil clowns emerge?
Today we're going to be talking about the Nephilim Look Like Clowns Part 5, and it's titled Got Milk. Now the reason why I settled on that title is because when you start looking into some of these rituals involving milk, you can find connections to satanic influences, the elite, milk baths, these baptisms, if you will, by milk, and there's just these really weird connections, and some of them even involve clowns, so that's where this video comes in. Now, as I started looking into this weird connection between clowns and milk cartons and all these sorts of things, I came across this clown called Milky the Clown, who I believe was local to the Detroit area. But there was this company, I believe, called Twin Pines, and this Milky the Clown was their mascot, and he even started appearing on milk cartons. And this clown, I believe he appeared on all three major Detroit television stations, primarily in the 50s and early part of the 60s. So just a lot of coverage of this clown. He's on milk cartons. And he was, as I said, he was the mascot for this Twin Pines dairy. And apparently they kept his face on milk cartons until the 1990s. So, okay, so what, right? There's a clown associated with this dairy company and milk, and his face is on milk cartons, but as we keep looking, there's this crossover with Milky the Clown and Bozo the Clown. And when you start digging into it, you can find Bozo the Clown associated with milk and milk cartons. He was on several milk cartons as well. So there seems to be this connection between milk and these clowns, and I don't think that that's just coincidental. I believe there's always like a bigger thing happening behind the scenes. And when you start thinking about missing people, and I think this is just a scene from the movie Lost Boys, there was this other really unique phenomenon that happened. I believe it was in the 80s, and that was called the missing children on the milk cartons. There was this program that was instituted beginning in the early 1980s, where you had advertisements on milk cartons in the United States that were used to publicize cases of missing children. And I guess this campaign went on until the late 1990s. Where I'm going with this is, again, it's clowns and children always seem to be linked. And so it starts off primarily the 50s, 60s, 70s. You have the reinforcement of clowns and milk, and they're on these cartons. And then you go to the 80s, and there's this decision to put children on cartons. And, these things all seem to sort of come together. And I think there's more to it. And I can see how this would be traumatic, actually. This could cause trauma. You had these milk cartons at the dinner table, and your children are staring at these missing children. And that might not be the best thing, actually, because I think very few direct successes were tied to either local or national campaigns. So on one hand, I understand it's a tool to help, but was the original intention something more nefarious? Who knows? But as many as 5 billion milk cartons were printed with the images and details of missing children from around the country. So I just think there's more to this whole phenomenon, and I think it's a conditioning, and once again, though, just this whole conditioning of children and clowns, and in this case, it was done through milk cartons. And milk, of all things. So just really weird. And I guess apparently faces of missing kids even adorned pizza boxes at one point. And well, we all know about this whole concept of pizza and children. I don't want to get into it, but you guys know. So again, just doesn't seem random, does it? Now, what I want to hit on is a really interesting documentary I came across called The Clown and the Candyman. Now, I was watching this documentary, and, I actually planned to stop making videos in this series, The Nephilim Look Like Clowns. But then, you just keep coming across more and more information that just seems to tie right in. So here we are. But I was watching this documentary, and they were focused on John Wayne Gacy, the clown killer from Illinois. And they actually were detailing how they got a warrant to go to his house and do a search. So as they were going through his house, what they dubbed the murder home, it was filled with clown paintings and zigzag wallpaper. I mean, now if you've watched any of the previous episodes, I touch on these zigzag patterns and clowns. It's just so bizarre. And here's just some photos. There's a clown. There was a clown painting right above his bed, and he had this interesting wallpaper apparently with these zigzag patterns. Just strange, it's the context, right? These things seem to be associated with each other. And let me play you 24-second clip from this documentary, and it's just going to touch on these points.
From the time we went in, we could tell that he was marching to a different drummer, because the paint job, for example, the hall was painted brown, and then it had a zigzag gold lines going up and down through it. I mean, it was really weird. Clown pictures were everywhere. He had one right over his bed.
So yeah, very strange, very strange. Just as a refresher, we see the zigzag patterns and they seem to be associated with like another dimension and possessing spirits. And there's this other phenomenon called liquid crystal polarization, and these people almost seem to be being possessed, and there's these black and white zigzag patterns. And you can even look to the American Southwest and ancient rock art, and you'll find these depictions of these really strange looking entities, and there's all these zigzag patterns on their person. And even if you look at some pottery bowls of the Anasazi, you have these really weird looking figures and these zigzag patterns. So man, it's just this context, you know, because I think that these clowns and jesters, I think they're actually non-physical entities in an actual non-physical dimension. And as I've touched on, people see these jester type entities and they encounter clowns, jesters, and jokers while taking DMT. So I think there's a whole lot more to all of this, and just really just interesting stuff. And yeah, here's just another photo of the zigzag and the clown painting. And I guess John Wayne Gacy claimed to have an alter ego. So is this all a coincidence? You know, I don't think it is, but I just wanted to present that to you guys. And now let me just hit on one video update. In a previous video, I touched upon this exhibit, this Maya exhibit, where they were showcasing a bunch of these pieces that were attributed to the Mayan Empire. And one of them was this container that quite literally looks like a clown, you know, it's red hair, this pale-faced, and I think we're told, according to the narrative, that this is a spider monkey, but it just looks just very clownish. But this kind of prompted me to do a little bit more digging into the Mayan Empire, and of course you come across this worship of Quetzalcoatl, and you come to realize that this worship became widespread even down to the Yucatan Peninsula, where it caught on with the Maya. And then I came upon this order called the Order of Quetzalcoatl. This Order of Quetzalcoatl, known as the Q. Now, there have been other people who've come across this order, and they kind of just mentioned, obviously, how you have this order being known as the Q, and of course we have QAnon. You know, where did that come from? And one of their slogans apparently is, where we go one, we go all. So, you know, again, is that random? Probably not. But for the purposes of this video and where my focus is, it's actually, when you start looking into this order, you realize they're comprised solely of Shriners. And once again, the Shriners, they have ties to clowns and jesters. And but apparently for this order, their main contribution is towards transportation funds for Shriner Hospital. These things just keep intertwining. And yeah, just a refresher, you have the Shriners Hospitals for Children where they dress up like clowns, you know. And then there's another royal order called the Royal Order of Jesters, and that order is comprised solely of Shriners. And again, so you got jesters, you have jesters, jokers, clowns, and children, and you've got this Order of Quetzalcoatl. So just bizarre, but I just wanted to bring this to you guys' attention, and this was, I guess, just a license plate. Weird, very weird.
Demons, jesters, and clowns. What are the origins of the jester? Now, before I dive deep into this topic, I want to talk about the origins of demons. Now, the 66 canon of the Bible that we have here in the West does not really talk about the origins of demons or where demons come from. In fact, a lot of Christians confuse fallen angels with demons, but according to the Bible, these are two separate entities. However, the 66 book Bible that we have today does not talk about the exact origins. But the Book of Enoch, one of the apocryphal books found with the Dead Sea Scrolls, does talk about the origins of demons. And I know what a lot of people are going to say, well, you can't use the Book of Enoch, it's not inspired, it's not canon. Well, it's canon depending on where you go. Here in America, no, it's not canon. But in Ethiopia, one of the oldest Christian civilizations in the world, it is canon. And in fact, they own the world's oldest Bible that has more than 66 books. In fact, it has like 80 something. And the Book of Enoch happens to be one of the books that they do have. So in Ethiopia, they would say that, you're deceived for only having a 66 book Bible. So I don't know who's deceived here. Is it the Ethiopians? Is it us? Now, according to Enoch, demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim when they were killed off during the flood. And if you don't know who the Nephilim are, they are the giants of pre-flood times. The half-angel, half-human breed known as the Nephilim. It's when in Genesis the sons of God, the angels, came down unto the daughters of man and bore children unto them, and these children became the giants we know of in legends found throughout the world. So yes, according to Enoch, that is where the origins of demons come from. And what I found very interesting is some of the descriptions of demons sound a lot like a clown-like appearance. There's an idea that jesters and clowns and that whole clown look actually comes from demonic appearances. In many Native American cultures, there are stories of giants that are passed down where warring tribes of natives fought with these tribes of giants, and these giants had abnormally pale faces with red hair. Again, the description it describes the giants kind of sounds like Pennywise the clown from It. Now, the reason I really want to talk about jesters and clowns is the fact that many people on psychedelics see the exact same entity and they describe seeing the exact same type of being, a strange jester or clown-like entity. In fact, Joe Rogan, one of the most famous people in the DMT world who have partooken in DMT, describes seeing these entities, these jester-like clowns. And what he stated about these entities that he saw in DMT was that they were very strange and playful. They were like little trickster spirits. They would mock him, flip him off, laugh at him. They would just have that, royal fool jester-like personality. And that's what a lot of people describe when they take psychedelics like DMT or shrooms. They describe seeing these strange looking beings and entities that look like clowns and jesters. I found that very interesting because I'm actually friends on TikTok and Instagram with a guy named Exorad Magical. His real name is Chris. And what's really interesting about this guy is he has schizophrenia, and he's also an amazing artist and an amazing video animator. So he's able to show his audience what he's feeling, what he's hearing, and what he's seeing through his art and through his animations. In fact, he makes some schizophrenia simulators that I'm about to show you right now.
Hello. So just a trigger warning before I do the sound for other people with schizophrenia. It can be upsetting, but this is what Bertram sounds like. So before I get into that, Bertram is the dark entity that is the opposite of my light entity, Jester, that I hallucinate on a day-to-day basis. Bertram is like if your anxiety, depression, anger, etc. became manifest into something. And this is what it sounds like. I'll be completely honest. Yes. And the reason I say that is because these entities are things that started... Okay, you have to understand, people listening, I started out extremely logical and scientific when I was a teenager. I was an atheist. I didn't believe in ghosts. I didn't believe in demons or spirits or entities, regardless of my indigenous upbringing. However, when my onset happened, these guys started showing up, and yes, I went through every hypothesis. Okay, it's in my mind. I created this, I did that, which is true. It is in the mind, but it's in the universal mind. It's an archetype that exists before I even existed, before you existed, everything. Because there was humor, there was rage, there was fury, there was beauty before human brains could perceive it. Brains are the antennas. Our mind is the transmitter. So...
Hey everybody, this is the artist Machiavelli, and this is part 2 to my 2012 Antioch Shrine Circus video breakdown. If you watched my last video, I did a breakdown of this coloring book, and I also did a breakdown of the clown cards that came inside of it. I just wanted to point out a couple of the ads and the pictures in here and go into a little bit more detail than my last video. So as you see on the cover here, you have the clown character, the little horn that he shows right here in his hand, and he also shows you that he's making the V right here, and he also has the flower, the wheels of tribulation. Clowns are cool, repeated 3 times here in this strategically placed arrangement of the stickers. And then you have this strange writing here that this child supposedly wrote. I am play the game. Now, if you watched my last video, you might have seen a couple of these that I showed, and I just kind of grabbed a couple extra ones so I could point them out. Here again you have the little horn being shown with the clown. You have all the Masonic emblems, and then you see all of the different advertisements, and all of these people are Masons or Shriners themselves. All of the ads you see in here, and you might recognize some of them. All of these people are complicit. Here you have the clown character showing off the false idol, and as he's looking at the Jesus character here. This is the end of this and the beginning of this, all brought about by this character. It, Pennywise, the clown. Here's the low rider. All of these things are picked specifically by the Masons because they know what they're doing. See the hand, the V, and the false idol. Many times they show the elephant standing up on 2 or 3 feet. It represents ascension or some kind of evolution of the species, evolution of the elephant into the false idol, something more than it is. The eye, the wheel, the 6. Hello, rider again. Here you have the false prophet, the eye poked out, the left eye, balancing the globe, or with the globe, holding it up according to how he sees fit, with the clown character running the whole show from the background, right there. Every child needs a role model. And the Masons are there for that, believe me. They get them while they're young. That's how they get such a tight grip in society. Here, the clown is shown with a gun and with the Shriner Masonic emblem hanging here from the sword. And then you got the main clown here fishing, fly fishing. The fish, the Jesus fish. So he's fishing for souls here as they get away. Right here. Here you have the clown character doing the V, doing tricks, and explaining to the dog star, pointing up, saying time to go, dog star. Very symbolic to the Masons, very symbolic to the Christians, or most of them. Here you again, the elephant, 3 legs only. Here you have the PNC bank logo right next to the Masonic logo. You see, it's all the exact same, it's all the same ad, it's all the same stuff. These guys are all the same company. Look at this. Indianapolis, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky. It's just one segment of the New World Order of the Illuminati, one little chapter. The elephant ascending up, the false prophet, again, off of all 4 legs. It's just the same themes over and over and over and over and over again. The Masons aren't creative. Their power is in redundancy. Here you have, the false prophet doing tricks. All the people are out here watching. And the rainbow, the nukes. The rainbow is a side effect of the nuclear weapons. Let's see what else we got here. Here you have the clown with the mark of the beast on his forehead, and one star underneath his eye. Something with the eyes, the flower, the wheel of the tribulation, doing the hand symbol here. And they're always shown with birds as well, a lot of times, for some reason. Elephant. You see, 6, 6. Where's the other one? Boom, right there. 6. It's not a coincidence. And once again, not on all 4 legs, ascending, the dog weighing more than the false prophet. It's very interesting.
you.